Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beef Loaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends, Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza, $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. and get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added at their normal prices. It's Monday Night Football, so you might as well get that going right away. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carry-out or delivery needs, or to cater your next party. You can also go 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. This show is also powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid. It's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest. He's the host of the Future Sox podcast, which streams weekly on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Central Time this time of year, and actually in a little bit, so he's pulling double duty tonight. He's also the author of more video cuts of White Sox minor leaguers than anyone else on Elon's favorite app. And lastly, he's a music aficionado and longtime friend of the 108ers. Ian Eskridge, welcome back to the Au Jus, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Beef. Appreciate it.
Really, I can see you too. It's been a little bit since we've cut it up on one of these things. I'm a pretty loyal watcher of you and James on the live stream. I try to get you on the live stream when I can. If not, I hit the podcast feed. You guys seem to have settled in now. You've been working together now. I guess it's coming up on a year. Yeah, something like that. Almost. The podcast sounds great. And I've really been wanting to have you on for this discussion. As I was telling you before we came on and went live, you see lists out there. People make lists of stuff or whatever. But to really dig in on a list, you don't get it that often. People, they do the hot take thing or whatever. But because it's near and dear to our hearts, these White Sox prospects, and it's important for a future in which Chris gets in the short term saying there's probably not going to be a lot of reinforcements via free agency. These are probably some of the guys we're going to be looking at. So I figured it time to put you. I mean, if this had a different sponsor, we'd be calling this a hot seat, because I'm going to put you on the fire here a little bit with some of these questions about the list that Future Sox put out for the midseason. Are you ready, Ian?
I mean, after looking at these questions when you sent them over, I was like, oh man. I was like, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here. There's like, questions about whose list was what, and
yeah,
it's gonna be fun. But I'm mostly throwing myself under the bus. So,
I was gonna say at this point, pretty friendly with you and James. Sleepy Harold, I've known for quite a while as well. The younger guys, I assume Elijah, and we're friendly-ish online. I haven't done a lot with them, so hopefully I don't hurt too many feelings with some of the questions I asked. But hey, it's all in the guise of understanding. We're not trying to be right, Ian. We're just trying to understand. That's all I'm trying to do with these questions. So, without further ado, I noticed on your list and other lists, national lists, Noah Schultz is sliding up. And it slid up to number one in the Future Sox list. And you could see that coming. Dominated in the minors. It's not a real long track record because he's a younger guy and you're working up the innings still. But no one has really challenged him whatsoever. And the upside seems absolutely ginormous. So no problems there. My questions start at number 2. And that's where Colson Montgomery has slid down to. Now, Colson Montgomery is 2, and you guys listen nationally. But my question is this: how in the world is Colson Montgomery holding off Edgar Caro, who at a similar age has hit better at both double and triple A, and plays a defensive position that I personally think catcher is harder than shortstop, although the volatility in defense, like if you don't make it as a catcher, you're a first baseman, whereas shortstops that don't make it have a lot more defensive utility. Where does it exist? How is Caro 4, Colson 2, with the way they've hit at least the past calendar year?
So I almost, in the preseason, I almost put Schultz at number 1 above Montgomery then.
Okay.
And then, when the midseason came out, we unanimously across the board, everybody put him at 2. Now, the one thing you have to look at with this list is when it came out, we had written it, we had because we wanted to write all the breakdowns and everything for each individual player, we put off putting out the list. So the list was made probably at the beginning of right after the draft happened.
Okay.
And so, when you look at this list, a bunch of the guys that are in the list from the draft, we ranked them just on where we thought they would slide in because we wanted to include them in the list.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
yeah, so it makes it different or difficult when Edgar Caro moved from AA to AAA. He made an adjustment to his swing, and then he really started murdering the ball. So, and this was after we had already set up the list and everything. So that kind of made things a little weird there. But on the same side, like I put I almost put Hagen Smith at number 2 anyway.
Okay. That's good. I love this. Yeah.
Personally, I had Edgar Caro at 5.
You had him further back, so you okay?
Further back, yeah, because I had Grant Taylor at 4.
Okay, and we're gonna get to Grant Taylor in a minute because he's a very interesting part of this list, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. So as far as Colson Montgomery goes, there is a lot of learning going on right now, and it has been mentioned across the all of the social media platforms and in numerous podcasts and whatever that the guy's never struggled doing anything in his entire life. Right. So he's going through something completely new right now. And, the phrase goes, development is not linear, So
I've heard that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, who's to say, what trajectory his development is going to take? It might take him a little bit longer until he finally gets it. Now, personally, when I watch him, one of the things that I do notice is he's really pull happy. And I think that that's part of the issue that he's going through is that he's trying to literally pull everything.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a breaking ball. He's
trying to shortcut to get to the power because the power had been kind of the question, right? Like the discipline and everything had been fine, but then it's like, when's he going to get to the power? Maybe he's rushing it to it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me when he tends to go the other way with pitches. Like when he hits the ball where it's pitched, the batting average is going to rise. I just don't know, what we're looking at as far as oppo power goes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that even in Charlotte, if he was doing it there, I don't know that I can necessarily project it to the rate from Charlotte. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's tough.
So
it's tough to extrapolate that. Yeah. But okay, so if you were re-rating today, you said Caro got a little hotter afterwards. They were still hitting in AA, but he really hit the ball in AAA. If you were re-rating today, would you still have Colson Montgomery ahead of Edgar Caro? And is it strictly to do with the fact that catchers are so risky, and that's why it's like not such a shoo-in?
Well, I mean, everybody that throws to Caro seems to love him.
That's a good sign, yeah.
Yeah, and he has improved quite a bit as a catcher with his blocking and throwing and all that. For me, I would probably tend to, because of all the factors that you've mentioned, I'd probably put him at an A and a B. Like I don't know that I would necessarily rank one higher than the other because, like you also mentioned, with being a catcher. If he struggles to be a catcher at the major league level and they end up moving him first base, I don't know that he's necessarily got the power to put up more than, 20, 25 home runs. Yeah. And that's not necessarily, I mean, granted, what we've got right now.
No, you're right, Ian. At 20 or 25 home runs at first, you need to get to a lot of on-base skills at that point. Yeah. You've got to be spiking a 370 on base or something to make that feel like, this guy's a first division player at that spot. And so the drop-off is significant when it comes to the bat plays great at catcher. Oh, at first base, not so great anymore. It kind of gets dizzy. So that's a good clarification there and good for me to understand. So I'm going to still feel bullish about Caro because I feel like out of the guys that are in the minors, I feel like he's the one, especially offensively, that might come here and produce in 2025 and give me something to, a little glimmer of something to look at, going to this next season.
I would not, shortchange Colson Montgomery.
I shan't.
I do realize what we've seen and the numbers that we've seen, but the kid's got crazy power. He's improved on defense at shortstop. It's kind of one of those things. Like I said, development's not linear, so it could be like a light switch flips in like June next year, and then he becomes the guy that everybody's been looking for. I just don't know that that's necessarily, going to happen overnight, and it's just going to be, poof, he's here, and then he's, doing like Bobby Witt Jr. things,
Yeah, exactly. One can only wish. You mentioned in the first question, you mentioned Hagen Smith. I want to get to him. Hagen Smith checks in at number 3 on this list right here. You mentioned you were almost going to put him at number 2. I mean, he is that electric. My question for you is: had the White Sox selected either Jack Kaggs or Weatherholt with that number 5 overall pick, are they number 3 on this list? Or do they find themselves behind Edgar Carroll? I'm interested to see, because there was a lot of conjecture at the time of the pick, and a lot of people were questioning, why are the White Sox picking a pitcher again? They got a lot of pitchers. And to me, what it looked like they did was picked what they thought was probably the best player at that point, or at least the best player for their situation. So to you, Ian, would these guys rate that high on this White Sox list had they drafted them?
I mean, that's tough, because like I said, when we did this list, we kind of just threw guys in there, Hagen Smith is a very polished pitcher. Mm-hmm. And when you look at like Weatherholt, a little bit different, the question with Weatherholt was whether or not he could play shortstop. And he showed, in season this year that he could play shortstop, and he made some really nice plays there. Now, whether he ends up being a full-time shortstop or not, that I don't know. But there's a possibility that he is, possibly bumps Caro out of there. Now, Caglione, though, there's so many questions about his chase rate with his guy's got ridiculous power. And he showed that power for like the first 2 weeks when he started playing after he was drafted. And then the things happened. The things that everybody was worried about. Yeah. And like there's like one of the podcasts I listen to, minor league nerd stuff. Somebody saw him just swing at a pitch that was like 4 feet out, like a Javi Baez type swing. And the guy said he heard somebody in the other dugout say, "This isn't the SEC anymore, pal." And it's going to take him some time to see whether or not he ends up panning out. I mean, when he did chase, he didn't miss a lot in college.
Right, that was the interesting thing. Such a good athlete that he was getting to the contact. It wasn't like he had a big strikeout rate. It was just swing at everything kind of situation, right?
Yep. Yeah. So whether or not, I would say Weatherholt probably does bump Caro, but I don't know I don't think Kaggs would have, just because of the questions that were there. But he does have very special power. The guy hit a home. I was at the College World Series, and he hit a home run like probably about 20 feet away from me and my kid, and the thing just came screaming over there. I mean, he hits the ball hard, but again, that's BB Core bats and college ball and whatever. But
different game. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of guys who cracked the list, and for me, this guy is a little bit of a lightning rod, because I don't know which way to go about this. I don't know whether to be really excited that there's a guy who's had very little minor league exposure that has a chance to be really special, or if I look at the rest of the list and see the guys and say, how are they all behind the guy that's barely played? And that is Grant Taylor. So explain the Grant Taylor heat to the layman. He's ranked number 5 on the list. I'm guessing half of the people in the comments probably don't even know who Grant Taylor is. Explain why he's so high, and what do you and the Future Sox team like about him?
So, one of the things so he pitched in the Cape Cod League before he ended up needing Tommy John, and he was there, and people said that he was so electric that, some people even say, and I'm not saying that there's, what the validity of this statement is, but they said that he was more electric than Skeens.
That's lofty. Even if it was only a couple people saying that, that's lofty.
That's a big thing to say.
Yes.
But so he goes to start for LSU and ends up needing Tommy John in the spring, and so he sat. White Sox draft him, and he was basically ready to go right at the beginning of this year. He was in spring training, throwing down in Arizona with the guys. And one of the things that everybody said about him down there was that he's basically like having another pitching coach there at the facility. And he's one of those guys that makes the guys around him better. And his stuff is just gross. I think he had like 32 strikeouts to 2 walks in A-ball.
Right. Just eye-popping numbers. I mean, like,
yeah,
even the short stint there.
Yeah, and we'll see. He's slated to be in the Arizona Fall League because he missed the time. He had and this was it. From what I understand, what I was told was that they were going to baby the F out of this guy because they didn't want to push him, but that the lat strain that he had was nothing serious, and they just didn't want to push it because they didn't feel that they needed to.
Right. Yeah. No. I was gonna say because they did give him quite a bit of a long layoff afterwards. It might lead you to believe like, this is more trouble. But it will be interesting to see how he looks in Arizona Fall League against good competition. I mean, generally Arizona Fall League is pretty good competition, and it's usually light on the pitching because the pitchers are usually the guys that just need more work, not necessarily the top guys there. So it should be interesting to see if he shines. But I mean that part of me is like we've graduated a bunch of pitching. There's other guys known, and then there's this guy laying back in the cut that might also be real good, like these other guys. So like it's exciting. I'm eager to see what happens. But I appreciate you laying that out there, Ian, because I don't think a lot of people have heard about him or there's not been a lot of buzz about him. And so you guys putting him up there higher, I think, is a real service to Sox fans so that we can kind of like start looking at him, get honed in on Grant Taylor. Speaking of power and speaking of gigantic guys, number 6 with a bullet on this list is a humongous suburbanite named George Wolkow. I know he's a monster, terrific athlete. Came out early, so he was playing as a 17-year-old playing professional ball. The power is right. The power's outrageous. The strikeout rate's 40%. Ian, why are you guys so excited despite that gigantic strikeout rate?
How hard this guy hits the baseball is why. He could, just flick his bat out there, and it's, he can hit a ball 400 feet. He's got like that kind of power, and I don't know whether it's because he's 6'7" and 240 pounds, which
big boy.
That's a large man. He's just the power is just ridiculous, and he's got a and like the thing that people don't they discount from him is that he's pretty good defensively as well. He's pretty fast. He's got a cannon for an arm. There's a lot to like about him. You look at the 40% strikeout rate. It's not ideal.
It's not
obviously.
It's not ideal at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had some of the roving instructors came down to Kannapolis and worked with him a little bit, and right after they came, you saw a change in how he was attacking the pitchers. And that's when you saw the real hot streak. He was going back up the middle. Basically, like one of the things that most of the hitting coaches talk about is trying to hit the ball up the middle away. If he's the left-hander, so he's going to left center field. And when you saw him do that, that's when you saw his batting average and all that stuff start to climb. And one thing that I've noticed is that over the last month and a half, where his numbers have started kind of tail down, he's been doing that less than he did when he was in his hot streak. And I think that's caused a little bit of that funk there, where his power has kind of not disappeared. He's still hitting doubles all over the place, but the home runs haven't been coming. and I kind of feel that might possibly be part of it. Now, I went to Kannapolis, I don't know, like about a month ago or so, and I talked to him, and the kid's got a great head on his shoulders, super smart. Like I know they talk about, oh, he's very mature, and he absolutely is. He's super nice kid and very smart, and he knows what he's looking at. I think it's just one of those things that he has to kind of reel himself back in to not try and be overly aggressive, and that's what's kind of fueled that strikeout number.
Yeah, right, which is substantial. I mean, the guy still takes his walks. I mean, it's still like a 12% walk rate at the level, so it's not like he's totally unsure what a strike is. It doesn't appear to be that way. Now, Ian, is there any precedent for a guy with this skill set to come down off of like a super high K rate? Because usually as you climb up levels, the K rates climb with the guys in general. I mean, it's not a short and fast rule, but a lot of times that is the case. As you move up, the pitching gets more difficult, guys strike out more. Is there any any proxy for this? Anyone who's been like looking like this and kind of made it?
Yeah, so I don't know if I could necessarily cite an example like this, but one thing that I will say is that you're going to in A ball you have A-level umpires. In advanced day, you have advanced day umpires. I'm 100% being serious about this. Is that
it makes sense.
See some of these pitches that George gets rung up on, and he's pissed. And I don't blame him because like the ball's like 6 inches outside and he's getting rung up, and I get it. But then again, he's 6'7", so he's got a massive strike zone as well. So I think that obviously this is one of those ones where I'm going to say, you got to have some patience here because, like you said, he's just 18 years old.
He's 18, yeah. He's
a
kid.
Yeah, he should have just been, joining fall ball for college at South Carolina.
Right. Right. And now he's got a year and a half of pro experience under his belt already, which is, it's a lot. Yeah. And he, definitely a guy to like, oh my God, when you see some of the highlights, but also like me, I'm cautiously optimistic because of those strikeout totals. Because some of these guys never kind of making it with those strikeout totals. Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. If you had to make a prediction, Ian, for Wilco, is he in the White Sox top 3 on this list next year? When you do midseason next year, is he in the top 3 or is he out of the top 10? What's more likely for his positioning here?
I think it depends on what time of the year you're looking.
Okay.
If you're looking later in the year, he's probably in the top 3 is my guess. Because I kind of have the idea that, second half of the season-ish, Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz are probably going to be graduated at that point.
Okay.
They got for sure, but
no, they got a chance at that top group of kind of all of them graduating, kind of in 2025 at some point.
Yeah,
so
because if Caro's gone, Montgomery's gone, Schultz is gone, Hagen Smith is gone, Grant Taylor's not going to be probably in the majors, in July or August or something. But most of those guys are probably going to be gone, so it'll probably be Grant Taylor and maybe possibly Colson Montgomery that are left at
Still
that point.
Hanging around there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. It's a full-on endorsement for George Wilco. Last question in this section of our discussion. Jacob Gonzalez and Brooks Baldwin are back-to-back in the list. They're 13 and 14 respectively. Why are they so tight? And I know it's not linear. The list isn't necessarily linear. There could be a big break off here, but it shocked me. It's like, one guy's been non-terrible in the majors, and actually, the last little section of Brooks Baldwin before he got hurt, he looked totally fine. Like that's probably like a utility player in the majors. The other guy has a 605 OPS in Birmingham. Like what? They're so right next to each other, but one of them I see as a useful player in the majors. The other, I'm not sure they ever make the majors. How does that end up happening that way?
With these two in particular, I think that what would be useful next to their names is like a green up arrow and a red down arrow, because Brooks Baldwin in the preseason, I think he was in like the high 20s. I think, if I remember correctly, I'd have to go look, but I think he was pretty far down the list, and he shot up. And this was one of those things where the White Sox were super high on him. When we talked to Jim Callis from MLB Pipeline early in the year, he was telling us that the White Sox brass was saying that, how high they were on this kid Brooks Baldwin, and that everybody was underrating him. And he had a pretty decent year last year, but he wasn't amazing,
right?
But then he comes into the season this year and he's hitting 400, for like a month. So it was like,
he smokes double A, and then they promote him to triple A, and he does not stop hitting. Like, they're like, all right, fine, that's enough. We're bringing you up. What can we do else?
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, like, I won't say that I was shocked, but I was a little surprised, on how well he did when he kept on getting promoted and he didn't slow down at all. And, like that said, like I watched this kid play. And baseball IQ, huge, generally always making the right play. I mean, every once in a while there's a physical error, but the mental errors, like, pretty much with him are non-existent. Like, I think I saw him like make one, like, maybe one bad throw, where it was like, oh, he's throwing to the wrong spot.
Right, he kind of messed up mentally and didn't do the right. Yeah, didn't do the right thing.
Didn't do it again.
Huge speed. I mean, he's got terrific speed too. He already had 4 stolen bases just in his his short call up there, and so like that. I mean, that's always usable too. Yeah, I thought the juxtaposition of those two next to each other is like, and especially like Gonzalez had gotten a lot of shit because after he was drafted, there was a lot of talk. Then he struggled. Then it was like, oh, he went in the weight room and he got bigger, and then it's just like, it's been an up and down year for Jacob. Whereas Brooks Baldwin, I mean, I expect Brooks Baldwin to be on the 26th man in 2025. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. He's going to be here, I believe. Like
the Jacob Gonzalez thing, like, he made major adjustments in his swing, and I think Fegan or Margulis just put out an article about him today. Maybe?
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Sox Machine guys wrote about him today. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I saw the tweet out there about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he made some. If you looked at his swing from late last year when he first came to the White Sox, and you look at his swings from May, night and day difference in his swing. And like last year when he would swing at the ball, it was like he was already running to first base before he had even finished his swing. It was
was it Ichiro?
That's exactly what I said. Is that he looked kind of like Ichiro, and I'm like, where's this guy going? He's super slow. Like, it doesn't. It's not.
What are you accomplishing here?
Dude. Yeah. So he makes these changes, and he's staying more through the ball to center field and left center away. And in May, he's hitting 321. And
nice.
In June it was 216, so he had a drop off, but he also got promoted.
Right, tougher pitchers and real tough ballpark in Birmingham.
Yeah, and then July he went to 151.
Oof.
And he just went into this, like, he started like his first week, I think, in Birmingham, he hit like 2 home runs, and he was hitting like 350 or something like that, driving in all sorts of runs. And then after that, he kind of cooled down after they got the book on him, and it took him a while to finally start getting going again. And then in August, he hit 260 with a 400 slugging. So he was kind of starting to feel things back out again and starting to move in the right direction. And then he played the first series in September, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't played in a couple of weeks. So it's been a minute.
So it's not like he's not going to get a lot of movement before next season because he's probably not going to play as much.
Yeah, he might end up at the Arizona Fall League. I mean, we don't have definite list yet.
Okay, that's just the rumored list.
Yeah, there's been rumored stuff, and one of those rumored things is that Sean Burke was going to be there, and now he's been called up, and he made his start. He got his first.
He looked great. I was there on Sunday. He looked really good. I'll be honest with you.
Yep.
One mistake. That was it. That was good.
Yeah. So, I don't know if he ends up going still. we'll see what happens. It's kind of one of those things that's up in the air that obviously, I find out things, but like they don't consult me. So I don't know.
You didn't get to have your say. So that's fair enough. All right. I want to get to my WTF section of the questions here. And we're going to get to Burke in a second, but we're not going to get to him yet because the comments were barely open. And my guy Lucky Spag says, is Tim Elko going to be up soon? We need a new first baseman. Ian, where is my guy Tim Elko on the top 30 list? I looked 6 times. I'm like, how can Tim Elko not be there? And he made it all the way up to AAA. He's hitting home runs and doing what he normally does. Not even on the list. What happened here? Tell the beef. I'm saddened by this.
I love Tim Elko.
I do know that.
Like there's his parents and his family, Old Miss fans, and then me, like in the hierarchy here. Exactly, yes. Like I've been on Tim Elko since we got him. And this year he started off kind of a little bit slower with the bat. Okay. It took him a while to ramp up. And last season in Birmingham, he played 34 games and he hit 6 home runs. This year, he played 91 games in Birmingham, hit 9 home runs. This is the entire reason for this is that, there were questions about his strikeout rate.
Yeah.
There were questions about his bat to ball. Not the bat to ball thing, not necessarily me. A lot of people had questions about his bat to ball. But one thing that he did do this year is he's like right now, he's hitting 273 in AAA. This entire season, he's hitting 285, and his on base percentage has gone up. He's taking walks a little bit more. No, I mean, yeah,
it looks like 8.5% at AAA is not too shabby.
He's getting there. I think that one of the things that they really had him, and I don't know this for a fact because I didn't ask him about it, but I think that was one of those things that they're like, hey man, you got to kind of try and reel in this, this walk rate a little bit and the strikeout rate a little bit. And that's what's going on is that he's been working on that a little bit. So the crazy thing is that he in Birmingham, he wasn't hitting home runs, but he was still hitting the ball, 105 miles an hour. It would just be a single, into center field, and
big ballpark and big boy, not getting the speed out there that much.
Yeah, he's not getting cheated. He's still hitting the ball hard. It just, like the launch angle on it wasn't necessarily, conducive to hitting a home run, especially in that park. Now that he's moved to Charlotte, he's got 8 home runs in 42 games. So he's kind of stepped that up a little bit. Now, last year he hit like 28 home runs. I don't see any reason why it's not possible for him to do that in the majors. To me at this point, I don't know what they're going to do with Andrew Vaughn. At this point, do you really need a guy that hits 220 every day and plays bad defense at first base? I don't think you do.
No, you don't.
And he's better on defense than Andrew Vaughn is. Okay. And he might not have that, elite, contact thing that whatever it is that they were saying about Andrew Vaughn that's helped him all the way up to 225 or whatever it is that he's hitting right now.
It's really working out great for him.
Yeah, awful.
Well, I mean, if you're ever gonna do it, 2025 seems like the year where you'd have the best opportunity, right? I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised if they pay Andrew Vaughn whatever $5 million that he's going to make in arbitration. I don't know that the level of utility, although Gavin Sheets has been better when they've made him first base only kind of in the second half of the year, but I don't know if that's worth your time either for any more. He's going to go into arbitration as well. Look, if you're going to have a year where you're just going to say, look, just go play okay first base and smash the daylights out of the ball, why wouldn't Tim Elko be a reasonable option for 2025 first base?
I want to answer this question here. Toddy Hito says, so Elko has the Eloy hard ground ball disease. No, he does not. Okay. Let's just nip that one in the back.
Stop that right there, right?
Yeah. Line drives, not straight into the ground at 115.
That's good to hear. That's refreshing. Yeah. We don't need the 70% ground ball rate, Eloy Jimenez. That was that's a little too much there. Speaking of Sean Burke, who had a great start yesterday, truly my real shock with this list was not seeing Sean Burke, especially because Sean Burke had generally been middle to close to the top 10 of these lists going for a while. Now, he'd had the injury, and so, you kind of fall down the radar a little bit, but I was surprised he didn't make it somewhere on the list because he was kind of a guy I was eyeballing. Like, when he comes back, I'm going to watch to see, are they ramping up his innings? And then when they started to do that, I thought, we don't have nothing going on up here if they want to break. And then I was like, okay, cool, they brought him up. And they had the one bullpen outing, and then Sunday, we were out there for the final Sunday of the season because the White Sox don't really play at home again. And Treasy and I are watching. We're pleasantly surprised with Sean Burke's start, and the White Sox get the victory there. So how did he miss on the list, Ian?
Full disclosure here, out of the 6 guys that had the list, the only one that had Sean Burke on the list at all is me.
Yes.
And the thing was, I didn't have him on the list in the preseason because I hadn't seen him pitch in forever. And I was like, well, this guy's dead, so I'm not even going to bother putting him on the list. So, but then when I saw him come back earlier this year and started watching him pitch, I mean, like the first time he came out, I think he struck out the first 8 guys he saw, I think, or something like that. And I was like, okay, he's back. But like the problem with him being back is that it's still one of those things where, he could strike out 8 guys in a row, but he could also come out in the first inning and walk 5 guys.
Oh, gosh.
He's like
he's one of those
that kind of guy, and like he was fantastic the other night,
yesterday, no concerns of control. I mean, like he looked sharp. I mean, like he threw a real high percentage of strikes. I even turned to Treasy. I'm like, it's refreshing to see a guy in this rotation throwing 2/3 strikes right now, just throwing his stuff in the zone. Go ahead, hit it, like give him a shot. And he had the strikeouts too. So like very nice, impressive outing. I hope that they have already decided that they're going to let him finish out the season making regular starts every 5 days because I want to see it.
Yeah. I mean, like like I said, the control's the only thing to worry about with him is that you have that risk where he might not make it out of the first or second inning, and it's mentioned in the in the chat that he's like Kopech. I mean, he's not exactly like Kopech. I mean, he's got like a 97-ish fastball.
Pretty good.
His curveball is just absolutely disgusting. But like the thing about it is that I put him at 27 because I had risk of reliever feelings because you could have him come out and walk 3 guys in a row. Somebody gets a single and then he walks 2 more guys. I mean, I've literally seen him do it. So it's just I had worries about reliever thing, and we generally, as not as a rule, but like most of these guys that do these kind of lists, they don't rank relievers super high on the list just because of that that possibility that you're looking at somebody that's in and out in like 3 batters.
Yeah, I mean, you have capped overall value if you have a 1-inning reliever guy as opposed to a starting pitcher. The differences are monstrous in overall value, and you can see that in the WAR totals or whatever else. So that makes total sense, and I am happy to see him have a little resurgence. We'll see how long that lasts. Last in my WTF questions is Jake Eater. Okay, Jake Eater's sitting here at 15. And my question really is, because you and the crew, I think the reason he's there is you guys just forgot he was there. And then you finish making the list and you're like, oh shit, it's too late to move him. He's already just there. We're just going to leave him there. Because the way I'm looking at it, Ian, is, Eater has not really pitched well at all since he's come over. And longer-ish stints, okay? I know he's had little pockets here and there. And back at 18, you have Nick Nastrini, who did pitch really well at the upper levels. Now, he stunk in Chicago, couldn't throw a strike, and I'm not really that high on him. I think that's a guy who has a lot of reliever risk. I mean, but even as a reliever, he's throwing a lot of balls there. So why is Jake Eater still up at number 15? Explain this one to me, because no Sean Burke on the list, who I would have thought be in there, and then Jake Eater still he's eating up, he's in first class still, and I don't get it. All right, that's what I need to know here.
So like when I watch Jake Eater, and especially over the last like month or so, month and a half, like I've gotten really frustrated watching him because
Okay.
I see that the stuff is there, and he can be really really good, but it's clear that his command right now is not where it needs to be. Um, you see that his velocity is fine. The ball's moving fine. His velocity has dropped a little bit. My guess is that because the season has worn on him, that his arm's getting tired.
Makes sense.
So that's that. But you know, there are the several factors when somebody gets TJ that sometimes their spin rate doesn't come back, sometimes their velocity doesn't come back, and oftentimes the command is the last thing to come back.
Right.
And you know, you see innings, you see a game here and there where there's glimpses where you're like, "Oh, that's who this guy is. This is the guy that they traded for." And it's that possibility is what keeps him that high on that list. Now, I had him at 14, but you know, other guys didn't have him that high.
Okay.
Let's see. I mean, he's a little bit higher. Some of the lists he's quite a bit lower on some of the other lists. I mean, it's hit or miss. Like either somebody is like, oh yeah, I see the promise, and so they keep him up in like the 12 to 15 range, and then there's guys that are like, he's almost on his way out of here, and he's like down in the middle 20s.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now me, as far as we talk about Nastrini, I have very big reliever, long relief role. Is what I'm thinking Nastrini ends up at. I don't even have him in my top 30.
Okay. Okay. I kind of like that actually because I could see that, especially getting to where we've gotten to, and you saw him come up and the majors couldn't throw a strike, and then he went back to Charlotte and couldn't throw a strike for a month. Like it was, if it comes and goes like that, that's interesting. And so there must have been, for him to stick at 18, there must have been some faith in the other list that thought, okay, we can turn this around. He can maybe make a mechanical fix or something and get it back. But
yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. And, like, I don't know if you saw the tweet or not, but, when you've got Nick Nastrini saying that, hey, I saw a random tweet on Twitter that said, hey, I should stay in the same spot on the mound. And that's actually a tweet from our not Cease.
I did see that.
Who posted something. It might have been somebody else's tweet that he saw, but he, like we all think that it's him because, he's our guy. So we're going to claim it.
I would too if I were you.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, if that's the case, that's where he's like, oh, he's right. I should look at this, that's kind of a problem, and
Exactly.
like when it makes you go from being being able to pitch an inning and 2/3 when you're a starter, or the difference, where you're going and pitching 5 or 6 innings,
right?
And it took you seeing a tweet to figure that out. Like that's just that's why I see risk. But then he goes back out and he doesn't he's not unhittable anymore.
Right?
And he's doing that again. So it's like that's not. Maybe it's just mental. I don't know. Who knows?
I love it. A couple more things about the process of building an overall top 30 list. I believe the way it works, Ian, is that a bunch of you make lists and then you sort of maybe do a point system or whatever to build like the ultimate list. When you're going through the list, and I think you said it was 6 of you guys that did it, whose list had the most WTFs in it? Like where you're like, whoa, that's way off of what everyone else is picking there. And if you wouldn't mind sharing who the player was or whatever, that was either much higher than the group or much lower than the group.
I mean, it's probably me.
Not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, like, and the thing that the way I look at this whole thing is that, it's, I don't like seeing, I don't like looking at these lists and seeing every single one being exactly the same.
Right.
I also tend to be higher on guys that I watch and I've seen what they can do, as opposed to everybody else where they're like polling a bunch of other people. Hey, who do you think should be here? Who do you think should be there? Like
Right.
I watch every single one of these games. So, like when it comes to like the players that I actually get to watch, I have my opinions,
Right. As you should.
about
I mean,
them,
that's, and I think
So,
that's the key to these things is like really, giving yourself a stake as to what you think's out there. Who was a wide disparity? I know you mentioned for you had Burke on the list, and you did not have Nastrini on, which those are two kind of wild cards. Anyone else in there that they were a little off the beaten path from the rest of the crew?
yeah. So I mean, I put Yoiker Fajardo on there.
Yep.
Who's from the DSL, and he had a 57 strikeout to 7 walks run this year.
That's good.
Like I just, like I like throwing those guys in there every once in a while because, like no other list has Fajardo on there. So
Right.
we, me and James talked, and we were like, we should probably throw him on there because we would rather be first on him than have somebody else come in and say, "Oh yeah, we're the first ones in on him." When we're looking at his numbers, I mean, granted it's a DSL, so we can't really watch him.
Right.
But like there's
Yeah, you'd rather him be number 30 than number 31 and be silent on it. Yeah, absolutely. We'd rather raise your hand in that spot. So
Yeah,
that's
sure.
one of them. Anyone else in there?
Like I will say that one thing that now I look back on this list. I feel like maybe I let myself get a little too caught up in making sure that I added guys from the draft into the list. And, especially now that I'm like getting my eyes on some of these guys, and I'm like, like some of the guys that we got back in trade, like we got William Bergoya from the Phillies.
Yep.
Haral Perez and Alexander Albertus from the Dodgers. I like maybe some of those guys I'd reel back a little bit. I wouldn't say that there's like really anybody crazy that anybody really put on the list, but like with Anthony Hoopy Tuionatoa, the guy that we got for Grossman.
For Robbie Grossman, yeah, that's right.
What? A couple of guys have him on their top 30s. I don't. I mean, there's some of those things where it's just like a slight variance on opinions. I don't think that there's really anybody that you look at the list and you're like, what is that guy doing on the list? Because like all of them at this point, with what the White Sox have in the system, I mean, you can look at these lists and you could be like, well, there's a lot of pitching on here, and it seems like there's some flyers here on the offensive side of the ball where I don't know that there's like a consensus of like some of these guys where you're like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be good, and then this guy's not. It's just kind of one of those things that we have to wait and see. I like some of the traits of some of these guys more than I like traits that other guys have, and maybe that helps them get to where we're hoping they get, but I don't know. Kind of a crapshoot,
Last question about the making of the list. We discussed how Burke didn't get on there, and to me that was surprising, and Tim Elko. Is there anyone else that you were surprised didn't make the list, either from future list pedigree or from just overall performance? You're like, wow, that person, they are close, but how they really should have made it, but they didn't this year.
I'd say probably like the one that's like one of those ones where you were, like Peyton Paulette being at 29, like just where he started and where where he ended up before he got moved to being a reliever in July.
Right.
Before that, like at that point where, which is when we moved him down to 29 and almost completely left him off the list, was before he became a reliever. And since he moved to reliever in the first week of July, guy's been lights out. I think he's given up like 4 or 5 runs in 2.5 months or something.
Yeah, I was going to say his run has been terrific. Ian, do you think that they're at the point where they're like, look, this is your role. We're not going to be messing back around with starting, or do you think they see it as, oh, they kind of got him right, and now next year he's going to come into spring training and is going to be a starter again? What do you think they're going to end up doing with him?
I talked to Andrew Murphy, the Dash play-by-play guy, and I was like, so what happened with Paulette? Like, was it that was it physical? Was it mental? And he's like, I have no idea. I was like, he took the spot that was given to him and he owned it, and that was it. And
It's
he
amazing.
decided that that's where he was going to make his stand, I guess, and he's been fantastic. So I don't think you move him off that spot, considering when you look at the amount of arms that are in this system. I don't see any reason to take him off of that if you put him in that and he excels so well at that spot. Why do you try and take him out of it?
Why
Doesn't make
mess
any
with it, right?
sense.
He's the guy's dominating. Let him absolutely dominate. Tony Hito in the comments says, any news on one of the guys that we got back from C Straight? I believe his name is Sammy Zaval. Sammy Zaval is number 20 on the list. I got the full list in the YouTube comments. Feel free to click on that link and you can check out all the write-ups for everyone and the entire list there. The guy who I thought of, not because he was necessarily having a good year, but here's a name from the past, Ian, that was always like borderline top 10 in these lists, maybe 15 or whatever. Ryan Burroughs has disappeared into the abyss. I've not seen the name just floated off of nowhere. I just looked at the stats. He did not hit this year very much.
Yeah, that was like the thing is that he showed up in the playoffs though. He had a 2-run home run in
Oh,
in
nice.
one of their games that ended up, I think, being the game-winning run. I think
Okay.
in game one
Beautiful.
in the divisional series, and like I'd say he's been inconsistent. You can see that the bat has power. You can see that he needs to work. He just needs to get more experience. He's very young. He's been playing shortstop over the last month, and there's been some errors and whatever. And
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things where I can see the talent. I just need to see him do it consistently. As far as Zavala goes, again, one of these guys that's inconsistent. The one thing that he was very consistent on is taking his walks. He had 83 walks in Winston-Salem.
Wow. That's a
So
ton.
yeah, no, he did really well with his plate coverage, seeing where he needs to go. It's just that the power didn't show up. You could see the power. Like he'd hit the ball, 110 miles an hour, but like a lot of the time, like for whatever I have not looked at his BABIP, but I bet it's 234. So he did not get
Ouch.
lucky at all. Yeah. So like I said, like he can hit the ball, he can hit it hard, but for whatever reason, just this year it just did not fall, and he did not get lucky. So.
Damn. We get to this drink right here from Jayzel. Jayzel says, Sox need prospects like Jet Williams. I don't know who Jet Williams is, but thank you, Jayzel. Appreciate you.
Cat Williams.
That's a character right there. Ian, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the Future Sox top 30 list for midseason, how the sausage is made, as well as just general White Sox prospect talk. Really appreciate that. Remember, we ain't trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. Anything you want to plug before you go?
So obviously, Future Sox, futuresox.net. You can follow us on Twitter at Future Sox. I'm at Daily White Sox on Twitter. James and I, we go live every right now because of high school. He's a high school football coach, so every Monday at 8 we go on during not football season. It's Sundays at 8.
Yep.
But yeah, we do that, and there's a bunch of content over there. On futuresox.net, Sleepy Harold just put out the trending on the farm this earlier today, and just some Future Sox stuff. If you do not follow us on Future Sox, basically every highlight for the White Sox minor leagues that can be seen in video form is found on Twitter. And also on our YouTube channel, every night I've started uploading all of the starting pitchers. I make it into one video, pop that up on YouTube,
nice.
and same thing with the home runs as well. So
Sweet. Yeah, I'm going to say I have it in the YouTube comments. Subscribe to the Future Sox YouTube channel so you can get all their live streams. They have other shows, too. They've got a show with your buddy Danny and Nick Morowski, the Hot Takes and Heaters, and then also Elijah and what's the guy's name? Jeff. Jeff, I have another. So they've got three regular podcasts on Future Sox YouTube channel. Go ahead, subscribe. Make sure you hit them up. Ian, thanks so much for taking the time, buddy. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
You got it. That was Ian Eskridge. She's the best. Next week's guest on this show, I can't believe we haven't had him on any 108 shit all this time, but Scott Merkin's going to join me. It's wild. We've done live stuff together, but we've never had him on any of the podcasts. That's a huge mistake. That will change next Monday. We're going to talk about the state of White Sox expectations. I want to get a little bit in on him on like what he thought of the Pedro Grifol era. I know he's measures his time covering the White Sox based on all the managers, and Pedro Grifol is an interesting manager to say the least, at minimum from the commentary. Thanks to Punky's Pizza and Pasta and all you in the 108 family who's up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course the drinks and tips. Thanks. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you on Thursday for the 108 podcast. Bye, and I love all of you.